topic I want to talk about today is build bridges, not boxes. How to access endless possibilities. This subject came about because I was thinking about how society likes to categorize and put boxes and labels and stigmas and stereotypes on individuals based on their color, relationships, education, status in society, all of these things. And I thought about how we matriculate through life, being first born an infant and then learning how to crawl and walk, and the things that are done through life that help position us to bridge us from one space or one place or one spot, territory, or position or mindset to another. And I thought about how we often live off of bridges or use or utilize bridges in our life until we get to a certain point. I just mentioned about being an infant. We're born, we begin to crawl. Our parents put us in different positions and try to exercise us in a way that now gives us the ability to walk and then run. And then we want to ride a bike. We get a big wheel and then a regular bike with training wheels. And then next thing we know, we're on a 10 speed. And then now we're graduated from the 10 speed to now we have a desire to want to drive. And now we're not only taking driver's training, but we're practicing and driving in the car with our parents. And now we've gotten a permits license, and now we are able to drive and freely go. And then we get a license, and now we get our own car. All of these things, all of these spaces bridge us from one place, one mindset, one level of responsibility to another, until we get to around, and that's just one example I gave, but it happens in many spaces in life, but until we get around the age of 16, 17, 18, and definitely graduating from high school, going into college. Now we've hit with a box. What does that box typically sound like? Usually it comes in the form of a question, particularly from a guidance counselor, a parent, a peer even. What do you want to do with your life? Now our position has changed from these endless possibilities and this wonder and excitement to now borders, frames, boxes. What do you want to do with your life? It's almost putting in the mind of the teenager or the individual that I need to now check a box in life. Do I want to be a doctor, like mom and dad said, or a lawyer, or a pediatrician, or a veterinarian? Or do I want to be a teacher, a counselor, or do I want to now learn how to do agriculture and learn how to do farming? It's these parameters that are put on us by society, because now we have to classify ourselves. Before you were able to run and live free and just evolve, but now you have to find a category and get it. I get the fact that this is necessary in some spaces, but what I don't like about it is typically we form this box around the age of 18, 19, 20, 21 maybe, and we live in that box, many of us, until we put in a final box where we then are buried. I think we've cut ourselves off by living or categorizing ourselves, thinking. I think it indirectly happens or subconsciously happens where we put ourselves in this box, and now we have this subconscious mindset that this is what I have to do. And in some cases, we say this is what I need to do, because I got to get this done. I got to feed the kids. I got to provide and all this kind of stuff. But there's another side of that where we feel like we have to do it because that's what we've defined ourselves as. And we see it a lot even in the role of parenting. Look at some moms, and I know you're out there. Some of you may be even listening and watching, where you become a parent, and then now your whole life is wrapped around the children until they grow up and become grown and move on. And now you find it hard to find your way again because you have lived in that box of motherhood for 21 years, sometimes longer, depending on how many children you have. And then you don't know how to get out of that box because it's been your life. I get it. That happens to us more often than we not, whether you're a mother, father, sister, brother, daughter, son, whether you have children or not, whether you are accomplished in academically or athletically or not. We tend to put ourselves in a box in order to find our place in society. And that's where it becomes dangerous because we forget that a box is just a tool to transport you from one place to the other. It's not meant for you to live. It's not meant for you to sustain your life. I say build bridges over boxes, build bridges, not boxes. I say that because I think if we live from the framework of bridging ourselves from one place to the other. So if you go and you're asked the question, what do you want to do with your life? You don't have to say, okay, I want to be a doctor, period. Or I want to be a pediatrician, period. Or I want to be a lawyer, period. Or an engineer, period. You can say, I want to be a doctor, comma. Because there's more to you than that. There's more to you than just studying to become a physician or studying to become whatever it may be. It could be some type of art form, you know, an actor or a singer or a producer. There's more to you than just that. So I think if we live from the place of comma versus period, it gives us access to the bridge when the opportunity comes. And what do I mean by that? I was 16 years old when I was introduced to the medium radio. And I'm not talking about listening to the radio. I'm talking about being behind the scenes in the producer chair or in the host chair in the studio as a personality on the radio. I was about 14 years old, and one of my first mentors in the radio industry, she brought myself and one of my cousins in, and we were her young hosts for a particular show that she did because she wanted to add some youthfulness to it. She was talking to that particular community, and she felt like it was necessary to have representation. So I was one of the individuals that was brought into that space. Well, my cousin shortly kind of, dropped it and didn't keep up with it, and I stayed. And it was at that time where I fell in love with the radio. I fell in love with the art form of sitting behind a mic and communicating, touching hearts, building relationship, building rapport. And it wasn't until later on in life, after I had checked a box for myself, I had checked the box of becoming a beauty professional. That's what I wanted to do at that time in my space. But it wasn't until I was about 15, 16 years into the industry that this love for radio then arose again in me. And I had to find a way to say, okay, am I going to stay in this box of hair care, beauty industry, or am I going to find a way to try to evolve myself, bridge this talent, bridge this skill into what I love about being a radio personality, a radio producer? And I did that. And that's how this show, the Build on Beauty podcast, was birthed out of my love for radio that I got when I was 14 years old, and my need to bridge my professional background, my expertise, into a medium that I enjoyed. Get that? I found out and I established myself as a beauty professional, comma. So I figured out how to bridge that area of my life. And that's how this show was birthed. And now we're 6, 7 years in. That's how then I bridged this show, this thing that I learned, all of the things that I developed as an individual with this particular project or opportunity, I'll call it, into what I now do as a consultant, where I work with my clients to help them rebrand their business and broaden their reach by leveraging their expertise. I found a way to identify with what it is that I was doing at the time, but not be limited to it. That's what bridging is. You develop here, you grow here, you expand here, then you take all of that and you move it now into this sphere, into this opportunity, into this relationship, into this task, job, goal, business, whatever. Build bridges, not boxes. Here's what it looks like. I want to show this to you. So here's what it looks like for you to build a bridge versus a box. A box keeps you captive and confined. You're limited. Just imagine being in a box, closed, sealed, taped up. You're captive. You're confined. Versus a bridge, which offers you freedom and excitement. A box stunts your growth. You learn here, you grow here, and that's it. There's nothing else for you. You do this, you stay here. Where a bridge causes you to evolve and expand, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally. A box keeps you in a cycle, while a bridge opens you up or gives you access to new opportunities. A box keeps you lonely, or it can be lonely. But a bridge, it offers relationships, bonds, deeper meaning when it comes to those that you are in relationship with. We have to find a way to identify, find our place, find our the grace in whatever space we occupy, but not be limited to that. Build bridges, not boxes. Define what you want, check off what you want to do. But after you've done that, once you've become fulfilled in that, now go to the next. It takes some creative thinking, some creative ingenuity. It takes some exploring. It takes some self-identifying. It takes some wit and consciousness to be able to do this, but it can be done. But you have to challenge yourself to that space. You have to challenge yourself to the space of now saying, okay, I'm done with this area. My job here is complete in this space. You have to do that, or otherwise you'll lend yourself to a lot of frustration. And we see this time and time and time again, whether you know it or not. There's so many people, and I think it's especially now since we've been in the pandemic. And I know so many people are like, oh, everybody blames stuff on the pandemic. And it's not necessarily that it's being blamed on the pandemic, but what the pandemic did is it woke up a lot of people. It brought to light a lot of things. A lot of people that were on jobs for years that they didn't like, but they just went through the motions and did it because that's what they did. The pandemic said, you know what? It shook them. It was like a global awakening where people around the world was like, you know what? I'm not happy here. I'm frustrated here. I'm unfulfilled here. And those individuals who were brave enough to make the decision to destroy the box and build a bridge are the ones who are now feeling more fulfilled. They're more excited about life. They have a new perspective, a new lease on what it means to be whatever. A man, woman, father, mother, sister, brother, doctor, lawyer, whatever space, title that they occupy, there's now a new perspective attached to it that doesn't limit them now to just this, whether it's professional or not. It could be, it doesn't have to necessarily be a career oriented. The box can be just life, where you say, oh, I got to live here for the rest of my life because this is where I know, this is where my family is, this is where I was born, this is where I have relationship. But you really like this city over here, this state over here, but you don't go because you feel locked into a box. Build bridges, not boxes. You check the box. You don't identify with the box. That's the difference. The boxes that we're meant to have are meant to be checked, not identified with. When you identify with it, that's when you start to classify yourself and limit yourself to the other possibilities that are around you. Build bridges, not boxes. Thank you for joining me here with the Build on Beauty podcast. I'm so happy to be back with you. Check us out on all podcast platforms. Connect with me on social media at Cornell Jermaine. And I appreciate you once again, and we'll see you next time. This has been the Build on Beauty podcast, where beauty is born skin deep. I'm your host, Cornell Jermaine. Until next time, let your soul be made whole. Take care.